Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here at the N10 Hockey channel. Today we've got a few things to discuss, including a signing over in Vancouver, a couple of injury updates from around the NHL, a blockbuster trade, a huge deal between the New York Islanders and the Vancouver Canucks, as well as a couple of trade rumors involving the Arizona Coyotes, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Calgary Flames. We'll get to all of that coming up right now. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here at the N10 Hockey channel. I'd like to kick things off today with a signing that has happened over the past week, as the Vancouver Canucks have extended forward Andrei Kuzmenko on a 2-year contract extension. They'll have an average annual value of $5.5 million, and the deal will begin at the start of next season. Now I think this is actually a really good deal for Kuzmenko and for the Vancouver Canucks. I think there was some talk that the Canucks could trade him. He was a very tradable asset. And I think there were a lot of people upset that the Canucks didn't get maybe like a second-round pick and a mid-level prospect for Kuzmenko out in the open market. But I think this is a really good deal for the Canucks. I think Kuzmenko has shown so far this year that he's a really good forward and he's really, really talented. Even though the Canucks may not be winning a lot in the next couple of years, I think one of the important things to do will be to make sure that Pettersson is happy so that he can re-sign with the team instead of walking to free agency in a few seasons. And I think signing Kuzmenko is probably going to be a part of that. I think Kuzmenko's done really well with Pettersson and Mikheyev on sort of like their second line this year, and he has done pretty well, and I think Pettersson really likes playing with him. So far at this point, Kuzmenko has 21 goals and 43 points in 48 games, coming off of a fantastic season over in the KHL where he put up 53 points in 49 KHL games. I still think Kuzmenko's a really good top 6 forward. I know some people might have wanted to see him be traded and have the Canucks get some assets, but if there was a guy who they wanted to resign, I would have think that Kuzmenko and Horvat were the two players who they really did want to extend. I still don't know why they signed Miller over Horvat. That's just puzzling to me, but I still think Kuzmenko being signed for the next few seasons is good. He should be able to play a lot of top 6 minutes with Pettersson. He should continue to build off of this strong first season in the NHL. And I think Kuzmenko should definitely be a really good player for the Canucks. And I think the Canucks are really good to sign Kuzmenko to a deal where he was only making $5.5 million over the next couple of seasons. The first reports were that he wanted $7 million on a bridge deal. So the fact that they were able to get him to sign for around $5.5 million, I think is a really, really good deal for Vancouver. And I think he should definitely be able to be a key piece of the Canucks core group going forward. Now that's the only signing I want to get to today. Now let's go over to the injury update part of the video. There's a few injuries I want to get to. First with the Buffalo Sabres, as they are dealing with a few injuries right now. Now most of these teams are going through their All-Star weekend bye right now. There's only a handful of games over the next 2 days. And then from Thursday, February 2nd until Sunday, February 5th, there's not going to be any hockey games. We're going to have the All-Star games. So there's not going to be very many games, but definitely think that Buffalo suffering some injuries is not good right now. They currently have Dylan Cousins out with an undisclosed injury. They have Matthias Samuelsson out with a lower body injury, and they have Tage Thompson out with an upper body injury. Now, Thompson is a little bit more important. He's currently one of the participants in the All-Star game, so hopefully that injury doesn't linger and he can participate in the All-Star game and skills competition. But definitely it's just day-to-day right now with this upper body injury, so hopefully Thompson can recover in the near future. I don't expect him to be out too long, and hopefully he can get back in time to play in the All-Star game. As for Cousins and Samuelsson, there's a lot of talk that they could be back as early as their last game before the All-Star break on Wednesday. There's a lot of talk that Cousins and Samuelsson, who are two key guys for the Buffalo Sabres, Samuelson's a good top 4 defenseman, and Cousins is a really good center. And there's a lot of talk that both guys could be back before Wednesday. So if they're not back before the All-Star break, I would definitely expect them to be back sometime early next week. So don't think those two are going to be out too long. Samuelsson was only day-to-day. Cousins was out for an unknown period of time, but it does sound like both of those guys are going to be back soon. So good news for the Sabres to have Cousins and Samuelsson getting healthy and right around the corner from a return. And hopefully Thompson can get back soon and he can take place in his All-Star participation. Now over in Arizona, they've gotten a few guys back last weekend as they were able to get back Matias Maccelli and Lawson Krause back from their injuries, and they were able to return to game action. Now Maccelli had been out for just over a month. He had missed a significant period of time due to an upper body injury, so it was good to see Maccelli get back. At the early point in the season, he was one of the leaders in the rookie scoring race, and definitely looks like one of the better rookies of the season. I still think he is one of the better rookies, but given the fact he's missed some months, he has definitely gone down in the rookie scoring race, so hopefully he can get back up to the speed he was at earlier in the year, and he can get back to playing some high-level hockey. As for Krause, he only missed about a week due to his injury. He's been in and out of the lineup due to injuries this year, so good to see him get back into game action. He's been a good top six forward for the Arizona Coyotes, and he's definitely built off his terrific season from last year. So good to see Krause back in a top six role. Good to see him not miss too much time due to his injury. And after that long injury for Michelli, it's good to see him get back. And hopefully Michelli can continue to be a good scoring forward in their top 9, and Krause can continue to be a good power forward in their top 6. Next, over with the Avalanches, they have had a few good and bad news on the injury front. They got Cale Makar back from his upper body injury, and he was returned to game action. They got Dennis Malgin back off of injury reserve from an upper body injury, and seems like he will be returning to game action soon. And Val Nichushkin has suffered an upper body injury, and he's going to be out day to day right now with that injury. So some pretty good news for the Avalanche. Makar had been out for about a week and a half, 2 weeks with the upper body injury. So to see him get back into game action is huge. Makar's by far their best defenseman, and one of the better defensemen, if not the best defenseman in the NHL right now. So good to see Makar getting back to being healthy. I know the Avalanche have done okay this year. They're currently in a really tight fight right now for a playoff spot with teams like the Minnesota Wild, the Nashville Predators, the Calgary Flames. So it's good to see them get their top defenseman. That should be a really big boost for the Avalanche. As for Malgin, he had missed the past couple of weeks due to an injury. He hasn't played much with the Avalanche since being acquired from the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I definitely think getting him back is good. We know that the Avalanche still have a few banged-up bodies on the forward group, so to get Malgin back in a bomb six role, he's a good speedy winger who can contribute at some points offensively, so getting him back into the lineup is also good. I think he should be able to get into the lineup in the next game or two for the Avalanche, and should be able to continue to be a good bomb six piece for them. Losing Nichushkin, not overly great. I know that they did get Malgin back, so that should help a little bit with the loss of Nichushkin, but still, losing Nichushkin, another huge blow. With Landeskog being out of the lineup for the entirety of the season up to this point, Nichushkin's definitely stepped up and been a really good player, got a major extension in the offseason, and was really done great with the Avalanche since signing there a few years ago. So I definitely believe that losing Nichushkin is not great, but the Avalanche are nearing the All-Star break, so they're going to have a stretch of here where they're not going to have any games. And Nichushkin's only out day to day right now with his upper body injury, so I don't think it's overly severe that he's going to be out. I only expect him to be out for too long. Maybe he misses a game or two after the All-Star break, but I definitely don't think that Nichushkin should be out for too long before he gets back into game action. But definitely think that getting Makar and Malgin back into the lineup is good for the Avalanche, and that should really help them a lot. But definitely seeing Nichushkin going down with another injury is not overly ideal, and hopefully he can get back in the next few games for the Avalanche. Next, we go to the Vegas Golden Knights, where they've had a great amount of activations and look to be getting a lot more healthier. Now, we know that the Knights had gotten a lot of injuries recently. They had been dealing with a lot of injuries, but they had been getting somewhat healthier with activating guys like Jack Eichel and Jonathan Marchessault off of injury reserve, and they've gotten even more healthy. They've been able to get William Carrier back from his injury. They activated Shea Theodore and Pavel Dorofeyev off of injury reserve, and they've also been able to activate Brett Howden off of long-term injury reserve. So definitely a lot of activations for the Golden Knights. For Carrier, he had only missed about a week due to his injury. He has been in and out of the lineup over the past couple of weeks due to an injury. So getting him back is good. He's not the best of forwards, but he's a good key fourth-line contributor for the Golden Knights. He plays a really good fourth-line role and can be a really good role player for the Golden Knights. So seeing Carrier getting back into game action, really good for the Golden Knights. As for Dorofeyev, he was a call-up when they were dealing with a ton of injuries, but with getting guys like Eichel, Marchessault, Carrier, Howden back, they don't really need Dorofeyev, so they moved him back down to the minors. I expect him to continue to be a good forward there. He seems to be a good player who could possibly eventually, in a couple of years' time, be a good bomb six forward. But I think for now, the AHL is probably the best place for him, and he should continue to be a good top-end AHL player for the Golden Knights. The two bigger additions for the Golden Knights was that Shea Theodore was activated off of injury reserve, and Brett Howden was activated off of long-term injury reserve, and both have gone into game action. Now, for Howden, he had been out since November. He has been a really good fourth-line center since being acquired, not last offseason, but the offseason prior, from the New York Rangers, and he's done absolutely fantastic. I know Howden isn't the best of forwards in Vegas, but he's a good key fourth-line contributor who can help at key times with the Golden Knights. So getting him back is huge. He should continue to be a good fourth-line center for the Knights, and should continue to help them really shore up that depth that has been ailing them over the past few weeks. And for Theodore, getting him back is a monumental win for them. Theodore is probably their second best defenseman, only next to Alex Pietrangelo, and he plays a huge top four role for the Golden Knights. So losing him was not good. They had to use guys like Kane Korzak and Braden Packle in their lineup due to those injuries. But getting Theodore back allows them to put Korzak back in the minors, where he should continue to do a good job developing. And I think getting Theodore back on the team is a big boost to the Golden Knights. So getting Howden and Carrier back, who are fourth-line forwards, is good for the Golden Knights. I think those two should help them with their depth scoring, especially with guys like Mark Stone still out. Getting Dorofiev back is going to shore up their depth. He should go back to the AHL, be a good AHL player. He should continue to get some more ice time there. But the big addition for the Golden Knights is Shea Theodore. And getting him back, putting him back into that top four role is great for the Golden Knights. And he should continue to be a really good defenseman for the Knights. And last is the Columbus Blue Jackets, as they have suffered a few more injuries and continue to be bitten by the injury bug, as Gustav Nyquist, Nick Blankenburg, and Anne Boqvist have all suffered injuries and are all down right now due to those injuries. For Blankenburg and Boqvist, both just recently came off of injury reserve, like within the last month. Blankenburg had missed a couple of months due to an ankle injury. Boqvist had missed the first few months of the season due to upper body injury, I think. And both are now out again. It sounds like Blankenburg has a wrist injury, and Boqvist has another upper body injury, and both are going to be out for an unknown period of time. So bad breaks for the Blue Jackets. Both have been playing pretty good minutes on the blue line. Blankenburg have been playing consistent third pair minutes. Boqvist have been in and out of the lineup. And now that they're both out of the lineup due to injuries, it just makes the Jackets blue line that much more weaker. I know Blankenburg is in his first year, but he's actually shown he can do quite well. And Boqvist, while he hasn't had the best of seasons, is still a really good top four defenseman in my opinion. So the fact that they lose once again Boqvist and Blankenburg due to injuries is not great, and hopefully they can recover from those injuries. As for Nyquist, it sounds like he has an undisclosed injury and is going to be out indefinitely. Now, this one's a little bit more concerning for the Jackets. Nyquist was a possible trade candidate for the Jackets prior to the season, so it did sound like Nyquist was going to be dealt by the Jackets at some point. It's still possible. We don't know the extent of Nyquist's injury, and it's quite possible he could be back before the season ends, so I could still see the Jackets try and move Nyquist, but it's quite possible that Nyquist could, and I stress could, have his season ended. I don't think it's really season-ending injury right now, but it does sound like Nyquist's injury isn't all that great, so hopefully Nyquist can return in the near future. Hopefully he's not out too long and he can get back into game action in the next game or two for the Blue Jackets. And hopefully Blankenburg and Boqvist recover from their injuries as well relatively quickly, as those two have definitely had some injury troubles this year, and the Jackets really could use a healthy blue line, and that's something that doesn't seem to be happening in the near future. So that's all the injury updates I'm going to talk about for today. Now, before we get to the trade rumors, I got a huge blockbuster trade to discuss, and that is that the Vancouver Canucks and New York Islanders have made a huge trade involving Bo Horvat, as New York Islanders acquire Bo Horvat from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for three assets: Aatu Räty, Anthony Beauvillier, and a protected 2023 first-round pick from the New York Islanders. Now, this is an extremely huge trade. I wasn't expecting much trades to happen before the All-Star break, and this is a huge trade that happens just before the All-Star break. Now, Bo Horvat was an All-Star for the Vancouver Canucks, and he has now been dealt to the Islanders, so I'm not exactly sure what the situation will happen with Horvat being a All-Star for the Canucks and being dealt to the Islanders. Not exactly sure what the situation is with the All-Star game and Horvat, but definitely going to be an interesting situation over the next little while to see what happens with Horvat in the All-Star game. But definitely, this is a huge deal. I'll start with the Islanders side, as they get a huge key goal scorer for the foreseeable future. Now, there's no extension with this trade, so it doesn't sound like Horvat is immediately going to sign an extension. But it does sound like the Islanders have some optimism that they can sign Horvat to an extension. Now, Horvat has had a phenomenal season this year, putting up 31 goals and 54 points in 49 games. Now, last year, his entire point total was 31 goals and 52 points in 70 games. So he's already gotten 2 more points than he did last year, and he's played 21 less games. So I definitely think Horvat has had a really good season for the Vancouver Canucks. Definitely a fantastic, phenomenal player. I know he said that he really wanted to stay a Vancouver Canuck, but Canucks just weren't able to sign him after signing Miller, and they now move him to the Islanders. Now, I do think that it's possible he does end up re-upping with the Islanders, although I wouldn't say it's likely. I do think that the Islanders have a pretty decent centered group with guys like Matt Barzal, Brock Nelson, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, Casey Cizikas, and they do throw Horvat in there, who's a good goal scorer, but Horvat is more of a center. So I do think that maybe they keep him for this year and they let him walk as a free agent. I definitely think they would love to keep him, but I think given all the other centers they have, maybe Horvat tries to find opportunity elsewhere. Not exactly sure what Horvat would want, but definitely think that it's possible the Islanders do try to give him a contract extension, but I'm not sure it's a given right now that he does end up re-upping with the Islanders. But definitely, even if it's just for this year, the Islanders are currently 2 points out of a playoff spot, currently behind Sabres and the Penguins, but definitely the offense has definitely been their one weakness. Horvat's going to come in and definitely help that offense. I know he should definitely fit right into the top 6. I know that they do have a lot of centers, but they could probably move one of their centers to the wing. I know some people have said maybe they could move Matthew Barzal, who's a really good playmaker, to the wing, try and see if he can do a little bit better on the wing, as he's not really a good face-off player, whereas Horvat is a really good face-off player. And I also could see the Islanders maybe move Brock Nelson to the wing. I know Nelson has had some experience playing on the wing as well, so I think maybe they move Nelson or Barzal, one of those two, to the wing, and then they slot Horvat in as either a first or second line center, and that offense gets a huge amount better for the Islanders. And I think this is not the addition I was expecting. I was expecting probably more of a pure winger for the Islanders, but definitely helping that offense was priority number 1 for the Islanders, and they definitely got it in this trade with Horvat. But definitely think that signing him is going to be a really big piece for the Islanders going forward to make this trade a win for them. As for the Vancouver Canucks on their side, I think they did actually pretty good. I know some people have said that they've done really well on this trade, and some people have said that they could have probably gone more elsewhere. But I think they actually did pretty well. They get a 2023 first-round pick, which is top 12 protected, which means if the Islanders pick is in the top 12 in this year's draft, it will slot down to next year and be an unprotected 2024 first-round pick. But if the pick is pick 13 or lower, then the Canucks will be able to get it for this year. Now, I think the best options for the Canucks right now for that pick is either the pick is between 13 and 15, and the Islanders just miss the playoffs, but they don't get a top 12 pick, and the Canucks would be able to get another top 15 player in this year's draft, which I think would be a huge addition, given the fact that there's a lot of good players in this year's draft, especially given the fact it's a really deep draft. Or the other one is that the Islanders maybe get a top 12 pick, and then it bumps it down to next year, where the Canucks will get an unprotected 2024 first-round pick, which I think could end up being even better for the Canucks, given the fact that Horvat may not re-sign, and the Islanders are sort of an aging team, and the Islanders pick next year could be a top 10 pick as well. So I definitely think that if they were to have a top 12 pick this year, and the Islanders were to retain that first-round pick, that booting it down to next year could actually work in the Canucks' favor. So I definitely think that that's a huge addition for the Canucks, adding another first-round pick. With Anthony Beauvillier, I think he's more of a stopgap player. He's a good middle 6 winger who can play a pretty good speedy type of hockey. He currently has 9 goals and 20 points in 49 games this year, which isn't the best for him. He had 12 goals and 34 points last year in 75 games. So I definitely think that Beauvillier has had some better seasons. He's been on and off between the 20 and 30 point mark. I think his ceiling could probably be 35 to 40 points this year, but I think the fresh start for Beauvillier is huge. I know I've definitely talked a lot over the past few years that Beauvillier just hasn't really fit in since the playoff runs for the Islanders, and a fresh start would definitely benefit him. and I think this will definitely help. I think Beauvillier could either do really well over the next year and a half and be a good middle six forward going forward for the Canucks. He's on the younger side too, so that also helps. But he's also an unrestricted free agent, not this offseason, but next. So if the Canucks don't really find a fit with Beauvillier, I wouldn't be surprised if either in the offseason or closer to next year's trade deadline, they maybe move him for maybe like another pick or maybe a pick and a prospect or however well he's doing, and they move him as well. So I definitely think Beauvillier could be a good middle six forward for the Vancouver Canucks going forward. But there's also a possibility that if he doesn't really fit, the Canucks could move him at some point in next year as a trade chip. But I think the big piece coming back here for the Canucks is Aatu Räty. He's definitely done an amazing job in his first year as pro. I think that Aatu Räty is a really good prospect. Back in 2020, around the time of the Alexis Lafreniere draft, a lot of teams thought that Räty would probably be a top 3, top 5 pick in the draft. And he wound up not doing too well in Liga. He didn't do too well. His draft stock fell, and when it came to the 2021 draft, he actually was picked 52nd overall by the Islanders, sort of landed in their lap. So definitely think that the addition of Räty to the Islanders was great. He's definitely looked a lot more like the top-end player that a lot of teams sought over the past couple of seasons. He had 40 points in 41 games in Liga last year. And then this year in his first pro season, he's done quite fantastic, having 7 goals and 15 points in 27 AHL games with the Islanders affiliate. And then with some of the injuries that the Islanders suffered, they ended up making him a call-up. And he's also had 2 goals and 2 points in 12 NHL games. So definitely think having Räty as a good, possibly future second-line center for the Canucks is really good. He does show a little bit of sort of Bo Horvat qualities. He's sort of under-the-radar, quieter type of forward who can definitely produce at a high level. So definitely think the addition of Räty for this team is going to be great. I think the Canucks' future does look bright with guys like Räty and Lekaramäki on the forward group who should come in the next couple of years, as well as guys like Podkolzin and Höglander. So I think that the Canucks definitely have a good young upside for this team. So definitely think that the Canucks and Isles both did well in this trade. I would like to know what you think, especially Canucks and Islanders fans. Do you think the Canucks won this trade or the Islanders won this trade? In my opinion, I think it's a little too early to tell. I think in the short term, the Islanders probably do win this trade. The Horvat addition makes them a little bit more lethal on the offensive side, which is something they've definitely needed. And it makes them a little bit more likely to possibly make the playoffs this year. But I think longer term, especially if Horvat doesn't re-sign with the Islanders, I think the Canucks would probably win this deal, depending on what sort of player they get with that first-round pick and what they do with Beauvillier, whether he stays or he goes. Also on top of those, how good Räty becomes at the NHL level as a good offensive player. But definitely think that while some people have said that the Canucks probably didn't get as much as they probably could have for Horvat, I think this is a pretty good deal. And I think Räty should be a good second-line center for the Canucks for the next few years. Beauvillier should be a good middle six winger for at least the next year, if not beyond. And that first-round pick should definitely give the Canucks a really good player. So definitely think that this is a really good trade. I still wouldn't expect too many more moves before the All-Star break, but definitely good to see that we do have some trades. And lastly, here over to the trade rumor part of the video, just a couple of quick trade rumors to go through. First, staying with the Vancouver Canucks, there's been some talk over the last little while that Canucks goalie Thatcher Demko may be open to being traded and could be wanting out of Vancouver. Now, there's been definitely no trade requests made by Demko, but I did see some reports on Twitter, I'm not sure if I can really confirm that Demko is sort of unhappy with the situation in Vancouver and may want to be moved out. We know that the Canucks would be open to moving Demko. We've heard some reports early in the year that the Canucks don't have Demko as an untouchable and would be open to moving him for the right price. And I definitely think it's really interesting to see if Demko winds up being moved, especially before a deadline. I think Demko is a really good starting goaltender. He's cost controlled for the next few seasons, as he has this year and 3 more seasons at $5 million. And prior to this year, has been a really good goaltender, putting up some outstanding numbers for the Vancouver Canucks. And I definitely think that given the fact Demko has had fantastic numbers prior to this year and has been one of the better goalies in the NHL, I definitely think there would be a lot of teams interested, especially teams like Pittsburgh Penguins, the LA Kings, the Edmonton Oilers, sort of those teams who have some goaltending questions, as the Penguins have definitely dealt with Jerry having some injuries this year, and he's a pending unrestricted free agent, so their goaltending past this year is really cloudy, so maybe they could use Demko. We know the Kings don't have a really good starting goaltender. Peterson has not done overly fantastic this year. He was placed on waivers, sent to the minors, and the Kings are running with Quick and Copley right now, who are doing okay, but both are also pending unrestricted free agents. So the Kings could use Demko. And we know that while Campbell and Stuart Skinner are both signed for long-term deals, Campbell's not done overly fantastic in his first year with Edmonton. So there's definitely been a lot of talk about possibly moving Campbell. And could Demko be a fit in Edmonton? I think those would probably be the three most likely scenarios for Demko. But I definitely think there would be other teams who would have interest. So definitely an interesting situation to watch. I would definitely like to know what you think. Does Demko wind up being moved by Vancouver Canucks before a deadline or in the offseason? And if so, which team do you think would be the best fit for Thatcher Demko? Over with Arizona, there's some talk recently by Elliot Friedman that the Edmonton Oilers have interest in Arizona forward Nick Bjugstad. Now, he also said that the Oilers are not the only team who has interest in Bjugstad. Bjugstad's a really good bomb six forward for the Arizona Coyotes. He's on an expiring deal. He's going to be unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, but he only has a $900,000 cap hit, and is having one of his better seasons in recent years. He had 13 points in 57 games last year, but so far this year he's had 11 goals and 21 points in 50 games, and his 21 points is his best he's had in the last, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. So Bjugstad's definitely had one of his better seasons this year, and he's definitely looked like a really, really good bomb six forward. Definitely also with his contract, a lot of teams will be able to fit him under the cap hits, and he would be a really good role player for a lot of teams. So I definitely think Edmonton would definitely have interest. They are definitely a cap-strapped team who would definitely want a bomb six forward, like a Nick Bjugstad who could help on the penalty kill. So definitely not surprised that Edmonton's interested, but I mean, there's definitely probably a couple of other teams out there who would be interested. Maybe like Pittsburgh Penguins, maybe the Washington Capitals, the New Jersey Devils. The Maple Leafs could probably use a guy like him. The Tampa Bay Lightning like to get a lot of cheap bomb six players. So I definitely think that there's probably a ton of interest in Nick Bjugstad, and he's definitely going to be a huge name to be watching before the trade deadline. And lastly, with the Calgary Flames, there have been a lot of reports recently that the Flames are really heavily looking at the forward market and are trying to acquire a forward before the NHL Trade deadline. And it does sound like there's a few options out there for the Calgary Flames. I've seen a lot of people say that the Flames are probably looking at rentals, more likely, because the Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar extensions are going to kick in after this year. That's going to make Calgary's cap situation really tight over the next little while. So given that fact, they should probably try and go for it this year. They're in a wild card spot right now, and they look like they probably will make the playoffs. So definitely think that the Calgary Flames could definitely benefit from adding a top six forward, especially a guy who could definitely be a rental right now. There's definitely been a few out there who have been linked to Flames. You got Tarasenko and Barbashev, who could be good middle six wingers with the Calgary Flames. No, Tarasenko's definitely been linked to the Calgary Flames a lot, as he could be a really good second-line winger for Calgary. He does have some trade protection, which would make it a little bit difficult to make a trade happen, as he would have to agree to it. But definitely think Tarasenko could be one. Barbashev could be another. Maybe they could be an under-the-radar addition for Patrick Kane. Kane would also call his shots as to where he goes, and he'd probably want to be going somewhere east to like a New York team. But I definitely think that the Flames would probably have some interest in Kane. They could definitely be interested in Anthony Nasiu, a really good, speedy third-line, second-line winger who could definitely produce offensively at some points. Tyler Bertuzzi in Detroit. We know that the Red Wings probably aren't going to re-sign Bertuzzi in the long run, so maybe Bertuzzi could be a fit with the Flames. Nyquist, if he does wind up being healthy, he's already shown in Columbus he's a really good middle six forward. Could he be a good fit with the Flames? I think it's also possible. Timo Meier, who is a restricted free agent, who some teams could end up using as a rental as well, given his high qualifying offer. He could also be of interest to the Calgary Flames, given the fact that he's a really good middle six winger who could definitely produce offensively for the Flames. So there's definitely a lot of rental options. And if they didn't have a rental option, there's probably a couple of other possibilities I've seen them linked to. I've seen them linked to possibly a guy like Besser or Garland, who could be good middle six wingers for them. I know they've had a little bit of term on their contract and they're not really cheap, but I definitely think that Besser or Garland could be of interest to Calgary. I've also seen a guy like Anthony Duclair be linked to Calgary. the Panthers will probably have to make a move before the deadline, especially if they have Duclair and Hornqvist coming off of injury reserve to clear cap space. I definitely think Duclair could definitely be a good fit with Calgary, a good speedy winger who could definitely help in their middle six. I've even seen some people link Max Comtois to Calgary. Definitely think that Comtois has been okay forward for the Anaheim Ducks, but definitely think that Comtois could definitely use a fresh start elsewhere, and I think playing on like a second or third line for the Flames could definitely be beneficial to Comtois if the Flames don't get some of those other guys. But definitely think that the Flames will definitely try and target a rental. Maybe they go for a guy with term if they can't find a rental that they like. But definitely think that the Flames are going to do everything in their power to try and add to that forward group before the trade deadline comes. So I'd like to know what you think. Which player do you think the Flames wind up acquiring before the deadline? And what sort of a trade package do you think the Flames would send for that player? So that's all I'm going to talk about for today. Remember to like this video and subscribe. I also do a blog which I will link to in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.